Hi, and welcome to an in-depth, behind-the-scenes look at the 1980 movie The Long Good Friday, starring Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren. The film was directed by John Mackenzie and produced for £930,000 by Barry Hanson from a script by Barry Keefe. This movie was completed in 1979 but wasn't released until the 3rd of November 1980. It was screened at the Cannes, Edinburgh and London film festivals in 1980. The original story had been written by Keefe for Hanson when the latter worked for Houston Films, a subsidiary of Thames Television. Barry Keefe's first draft of the script was written in just 3 days, with the final version including contributions from Bob Hoskins, John Mackenzie, and producer Barry Hanson. Living in a Greenwich flat at the time, Keefe could see the derelict Docklands from his window, and his ideas entwined following a chance meeting with an Irish Republican in a pub. Gangsters against terrorism soon became a growing concern. Houston did not make the film, but Hanson bought the rights from Houston for his own company, Calendar Films. Although Hanson designed the film for the cinema, and all contracts were negotiated under a film, not a TV agreement, the production was eventually financed by Black Lion, a subsidiary of Lou Grade's ITC Entertainment, for transmission via Grade's ATV on the ITV network. The film was commissioned by Charles Denton, at the time both programme controller of ATV and managing director of Black Lion. After Lou Grade saw the finished film, he allegedly objected to what he saw as the glorification of the IRA. The film was scheduled to be televised with heavy cuts on the 24th of March 1981. Because of the planned cuts, in late 1980, Hanson attempted to buy the film back from ITC to prevent ITV screening the film. The cuts, he said, would be execrable and added up to about 75 minutes of film that was literal nonsense. It was also reported at the same time that Bob Hoskins was suing both Black Lion and Calendar Films to prevent their planned release of a US TV version, in which Hoskins' voice would be dubbed by English Midlands actor David Dacre. Before the planned ITV transmission, the rights to the film were bought from ITC for around £200,000, less than the production costs, by George Harrison's company Handmade Films. They gave the film a cinema release. Upon viewing his newly purchased production for the first time, Harrison said that he'd never have approved such a violent movie had this movie began under Handmade. It was Pierce Brosnan's first film role, and he was to go on and play first Remington Steele and then James Bond, and also a breakthrough movie role for Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren, who both also had successful careers. And they both later appeared in the movie Last Orders. Bob Hoskins was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2011. He subsequently retired from acting in August 2012. Sadly, on the 29th of April 2014, he died of pneumonia at a hospital in London at the age of 71. One of the first scenes in the movie is a shot of a house that is supposedly an island. The house is actually in Kent in the UK. The cameras would have been set up in the fields opposite to the house to get the distance shot. The Irish pub where Colin is seen drinking was actually the Salisbury, which is a Grade 2 listed pub on Grand Parade in Haringey, North London. In 2003, following a period of dilapidation, decline and temporary closure, it was sympathetically restored and reopened. The level of original detailing in the pub has led to the interior being chosen as a location for a number of films. The 1992 movie Chaplin and the 2002 movie Spider. Now in the next shot, we have Colin's driver going outside the pub. They had to use a different location for the car park scene, as the Salisbury Hotel didn't have a car park. Again, not in Ireland, but a pub in London. It used to be called the Fishmonger's Arms and then O'Rafferty's. It has now been converted to flats with a police station on the first floor. We get a brief scene of Platform 8 at London's Paddington train station when Colin's driver's body is brought back from Ireland. Jeff, played by Derek Thompson, and Harris, played by Brian Marshall, meet up at the boulevard on Wigmore Street, which is now an Italian restaurant. Then Jeff is confronted by the widow of Colin's driver. Razors, played by P.H. Moriarty, is parked across the road in the Rolls-Royce on Marylebone Lane. Bob Hoskins arrives back in the country at Heathrow Airport. The scenes in the car were done around the airport roads, which is a nice touch of continuity. We have an aerial shot of St Catherine's Docks in London. The camera then pans across to where Harold's yacht is moored, which is on the River Thames near what was the British and foreign wharf of St Catherine's Way. Harold's mother sets off for church. The car passes over the bridge on St Catherine's Way at the entrance to St Catherine's Docks. In this shot, you can just see St Catherine's Dock on the skyline. Originally in the story, they had two sabres displayed on the bulkhead of Harold's boat, and when he lost his temper, he ripped one down and cut Jeff's head off. I don't know whether it was budget considerations or good taste, but they cut the scene. I think maybe a wise decision. Harold's mother arrives at church. The interior scenes of the church were filmed at a different location. St Patrick's Church, Greenbank, London, was used for the interior scenes. Harold arrives, only to be told there's a bomb in the casino. The pub, which is blown up by the bomb, was in reality a fake, built using wood in Wapping, East London. Director John Mackenzie talks on the DVD commentary of how people walked in and tried to order drinks, refusing to believe that it was a movie set. We get a shot through the window of Harold driving up Scandrett Street, where they park their cars opposite the pub. Harold arrives at Errol LaPonce's house, played by Paul Barber. The restaurant where Victoria takes the two Americans and Councillor Harris was at Regines, 99 Kensington High Street. The roof of the building is known as Kensington Roof Gardens. It is a private roof garden covering 6,000 square metres. It also gained notoriety as one of London's most famous party venues, often featuring the rich and famous. Kate Moss, the Duchess of Cambridge, and Madonna are just some of the names who've graced the heights above Kensington High Street. After the meal, Victoria and Jeff drive down Ludgate Hill, past St Paul's Cathedral in the background. With Harold determined to find out who's plotting against him, he takes matters into his own hands and interrogates the local mobsters. The actors being held upside down in the abattoir had to be supported between takes to prevent them passing out. Unfortunately, the abattoir was pulled down in 2016. We get a shot of actress Gillian Telforth driving a Renault car up to the gates of the warehouse entrance, looking on to Westbury Road with Bull's Wharf behind her. The area where Gillian once stood has now been redeveloped into flats. This scene was shot in two different locations. As the dog comes out of the security guard's office and runs past her, it changes to a different location for the warehouse scene. With clever editing, the next shot is of the dog barking at the warehouse door. With Gillian Tailforth running around the corner. Since this was shot in 1979, it's good to see the warehouse is still standing and has been renovated. Another shot from inside the warehouse, looking down onto the Wapping High Street, as actor Brian Hall arrives in his Mark IV Ford Cortina. Harold arrives at the cemetery to see the widow of Colin's driver. Harold decides to take a visit to pay off the Irish. The venue was Haringey Stadium. It was a greyhound racing and speedway venue until closing in 1987. Stock car and banger racing did take place there until 1979. The site is now occupied by Sainsbury's supermarket. The stock car driver in the film was played by the British stuntman Roy Alon. Born in Otley, West Riding of Yorkshire, during his 36-year career he appeared in over 1,000 films, including the James Bond and Superman films. His debut came in the movie A Bridge Too Far. Roy made the Guinness Book of Records for being the world's most prolific stuntman. He doubled for actors as varied as Peter Sellers and Sophia Loren. The Shans take a visit to the famous Savoy Hotel in London. After telling the Americans what he really thinks, he leaves the hotel where the Jaguar is parked outside the Savoy Grill. When Hamill gets in the Jaguar and says, "Hold up, where's Victoria?" the scene quickly cuts to a shot of Victoria being restrained in another car. With a brilliant score by Francis Monkman playing in the background, it really adds to the drama. At the beginning of the shot, you get a glimpse of razors. Hamill's driver and bodyguard slumped over in the front seat dead. A bloody bullet hole in the side of his head can just be seen. The shot is very quick. However, if you hit the pause button quickly, the moment the shot begins, you can then see it. This was actually the first scene of the movie to be shot. Director John Mackenzie, who was driving, told Bob Hoskins the story and events of the movie to come, and filmed Hoskins' reactions. Cinematographer Phil Mayhew sat between the driver and passenger seat, with a 1,000-foot magazine attached to the camera, and filmed continuously until it ran out. As there was no room to light Hoskins in the interior of the car, Mayhew used a 50-watt light bulb plugged into the cigarette lighter on the end of the camera's matte box. Francis Monkman's score is so loud during the final scene that it drowns out any noise, because director John Mackenzie was giving constant verbal direction to Bob Hoskins the entire time. Because the sound levels on both sides needed to sync, the producers decided to mute the whole thing and put the score over it. Even though it appeared that Pierce Brosnan and Bob Hoskins were in the car together, neither actor was present when the other was captured in close-up. They each worked on a separate night, so Brosnan and Hoskins never did get to work with one another throughout the shoot. A sequel was announced in 1983, wrote by Barry Keefe, called Black Easter Monday, set 20 years after the events of the first film. It opened with Bob Hoskins' character, Howard Shand, escaping from the IRA after the car was pulled over by the police. The project came to nothing. It's been really great to revisit this classic British gangster movie, as it's been one of my favourites for many years. If you enjoyed this video, why not consider subscribing and hit the like button, as it's much appreciated. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy your movies. Bye.